So I have a bunch of questions. For anyone that's watching, I'm sure you know most of the details as much as I do. But here's my questions. And I've had this question from day dot. Was Don Wells at work that day? I'd also like to know where he works, which I just haven't done enough research. I probably could find it, but I don't know. If anyone knows, can you let me know? Were the brothers with Don Wells at work if Don Wells was at work, like Hunter said they were? If that's the case, that opens up a whole can of worms. Because then how were they at the house at 2:30, 3 o'clock, while Mama was picking flowers and giving candy to Summer, which, by the way, sounds like the most stereotypical thing that you would say if you wanted to make out everything was okay. How could the boys be at the house if they were at work? That really, really needs clarifying. Then onto a whole nother separate thing. Why on earth did Candace call Hunter, a 15-year-old, about Grandma and her knee in hospital? Then why did he invite her over his house? So at about 10:30, 11 o'clock this happened. What was Candace's motive in calling Hunter? Just to get wasted with him? Or to end up at the stables where she needed to be? I can't work that one out. Why did Candace apparently contact Hunter after Summer went missing at 7:30? And what is their relationship? What's going on there? It's odd. Why would she call him out of the blue and and involve him in a bunch of things, and then by the end of the day, Summer's missing? Now, I'm not saying that he's involved. He could be just a victim of circumstance, but it seems like he's either an alibi, and not one, and possibly doesn't know a whole lot about it, or has been dragged into something that he did not want to be dragged into. So then I have questions about his version of events as well. If you haven't seen Chris McDonough's series, when he's talking to Hunter and Hunter's mother and everybody, watch it. It's amazing. I can't even believe the cops aren't doing that. We're watching it on YouTube. Unbelievable. Why can't he remember if Summer was asleep, alive, or anything at all? When Chris asked him, first of all, he was saying that she was awake and looking at TikTok and looking at those LOLs and little pop-offs or whatever they're called. 5-year-olds aren't really interested in those things. 15-year-olds are, and he had one in his hand. So I don't know if I believe that she was looking at those things on the phone. This is a huge one. Did Don Wells call and say that there was a man skulking around the property attacking or abusing children? Don't think so. Hunter's mother looks like she knows that he's lying. That interview is painful to watch. She's squirming, she gets out of there. She can't even handle it when they start talking about the actual situation. She thinks Summer is likely dead in the car and is covering for Hunter, or hoping he's being honest in his recollection. That's what I think has happened. That's a big statement, and I'll apologise if I'm wrong, but to me, it looks like that. Who's the drug dealer, and has he got anything to do with Hunter? What's the drug relationship, and who owed who money? At the end of the interview, Hunter says that he grabbed her phone, Candace's phone, to check it, to see what's going on, because he thought something was happening. Why? Did he do that because he's just trying to make up anything to get out of the situation, or does he know what's going on, and he tried to get proof but couldn't get it. So here we've got a timeline, really. They arrive at Hunter's house at around 10:30 a.m. to 11 with Summer, and then decide to go swimming or fishing, swimming, I don't even know what, and with a change of clothes, and that's all real sketchy. Then they go to hospital and pick up Grandma. They go to the tobacco store to get the vape stuff and the twisted tea, alcohol. They go to Walgreens. Then they go to the stables at the swimming hole and swim there for 20 minutes. That's not a day out, by the way. That's just, we're going to the stables and you go and swim in that horrible, gross hole down there, Summer. Keep yourself entertained. Walgreens, Sonic, the CBD store, priceless, and got the milk and the groceries, and then arrived at Hunter's house again, apparently at 2:30 p.m. So it takes about 2.5 hours. I'll take these off. Roughly 2.5 hours, apparently. But then he doesn't get home till 2:30, so there's a little bit of a discrepancy, really. I don't know whether she was alive in the vehicle, but I'm going to look at the charts for these times, and we're going to see what we can see. So there was something that was said by Candace, and it really is the only proof at all that apparently Summer's brothers saw her at all. I watched her go in the door, and I could see her brothers at the kitchen table. When she went in, I walked over and yelled at the boys. I said, "Watch, Summer, I'll be right back. I've got to fix Mum's knee brace." I was standing right there. I was over there fixing it. Literally, you can see my house from the camper door. She did not walk back out that front door. Well, the only proof that we've got that the brothers saw Candace at all is her saying that she said to watch Summer. The boys said they don't know where she is, she's gone. So, did the boys ever see Summer when she got home? Or when they were planting flowers? Is that really when whatever happened, happened? Which leads me back again to they need to go back into that house and around the house and keep searching and searching. And the house 100% holds the clues. Before everybody started having interviews and talking and making themselves look pretty guilty, I didn't really want to say anything and say what I thought, but you know what? I'm going to tell the chart as is, and please be warned, it's not going to be nice. There's horrible things in this chart, and I'm going to say them the best way I can, but if you don't like to hear bad things, then please just switch off now and watch a different channel, because I'm going to tell you exactly what I see here. 26 degrees of Scorpio being Summer is not the best position at all. That in itself, making a square to this moon in Leo, this fixed square here, is not good. When we add into the fact that Pluto is also in this configuration very strongly, it shows deviant behavior on behalf of somebody that the mother knows or the mother. So looking at the 6:32 p.m. chart and noting that the mother is the moon, and also Summer being 5 is also represented by the moon, but Summer is also represented by Mars over here, but we're focusing on the moon at 27 degrees. You'll see there, I've zoomed in. Now, you're going to notice all of the planets that I point to are within orb, making aspects to the moon here, and it's an interesting way that it is making these aspects because everything points there. So first of all, we have the ascendant at 26 degrees of Scorpio, so that is making a square, a harsh aspect to the moon at 27. Then we have the second house at 27 degrees. The second house represents money and resources. It also actually represents selling children for, whatever reason. So that's the second house. Pluto is at 26 degrees. Pluto's the deviant, making an aspect to the moon. Now, the next one along here is Neptune at 23, still within orb, making an aspect, a quincunx to the moon. Neptune is drugs or drowning. Then when we go over here, the perpetrator, 26 degrees of Taurus, is making a square to the moon. Then we have the 8th house cusp, the cusp of death, 27 degrees of Gemini, making an aspect to the moon. Mercury is at 17, so 10 degrees orb, but still within orb, retrograde in Gemini in the 7th house of the perp, right next to the sun, also making an aspect to Mother and Summer up the top here. So even if you're just looking at what that means, you have an older male, a younger male, two people. The brothers, I believe that the brothers saw something or they were around. Now maybe they were just conveniently kept out of the situation, so they don't really know what happened and they can't say, even if they wanted to. Drugs or drowning. Now, the end of the matter is important, and it's in Pisces, and Pisces is drugs or drowning. Now, I don't think that she's overdosed or taken drugs by mistake, although that is a possibility, but I don't feel that. I'm starting to lean towards this one here, drowning. Now, DNA is at 0 degrees, Jupiter's at 2 degrees. They're both making an aspect to the ruler of summer, Mars here, from the 9th house into this 3rd house, conjunct the IC, which shows me that something has happened very likely around the water. And I think this chart is tenfold and tells us a few different pictures, and I'm going to tell you what that is. Position of the moon itself at 27 degrees of Leo is unfortunate and interesting. The definition of Alphard, which is the fixed star at 27 degrees of Leo, is sudden death by poison or drowning, which is what we're being messed around with in this 4th house here too. Problems with law, love affairs, and drugs. That's the moon. The perpetrator area, 26 degrees of Taurus, is where kaput a goal is. Strangulation, beheading, danger to throat and neck, violence, the evil one. It's a very, very unfortunate position for the perpetrator to be in. It's, very unfortunate. Now, it doesn't mean, that that's happened or, but there's definitely indications of issues with the head, but also that the person that did this is extremely dangerous, obviously. If we use 26 degrees of Taurus as the perpetrator and the literal description, we're looking for somebody that's fairly short and thick of stature. wide nose, wide neck, short arms, thick hands, short legs. Taurus is on the 7th cusp. We can assume that the suspect's anger was over a long period of time and pent-up rage, and that often leads to strangulation. Now, that's usually in older people. I'm not sure in this instance, but there's a couple of things that show head and neck injuries, but I'm not 100% sure about the strangulation. But dark eyes, usually the lower loop is bigger than the top one, and can be outwardly happy and courteous. So that's the type of person for the 7th house perpetrator. Mercury in Gemini here, next to the Sun, is very interesting. Mercury represents a person under the age of 29, basically, but a young man, and Hunter, to me, appears to be Mercury. Now, I believe that Mercury also represents the brothers, which, being in the 7th house, shows me that they're around at the time that this occurred. But what I'm thinking is that this connection that we have to the mother as well is showing us Hunter and also possibly this older male. Now, whether there's a drug dealer or someone involved, it's possible. It's possible that there's another person involved. It's also possible that Hunter himself is the other person involved. I have to say that. And he's talking, and I don't think he should be, to be honest. But hey, good on Chris McDonough, because he got himself one hell of an interview, I think, because I do believe that we're going to find out that a fair bit of that stuff was rubbish. And I'm going to go through some charts, actually, of some timing and things of interviews as well, because it's interesting to see when you look at the 3rd house cusp what's going on with the communication in the interview. You can get a picture. So now, in terms of that as well, the 3rd house cusp, so this is a phone call, so we always look there. It's ruled by Aquarius, and Saturn is the natural ruler, and that is sitting in the 3rd house, squaring Uranus in the 6th house of health. That shows me that when the phone call was made, the person that made the phone call knew something was drastically wrong with her health already. That's a big indicator there. The 8th house cusp is Gemini, and Mercury retrograde in the 7th house is also an indicator of that. So we're going to go over the map. Oops, turn up. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. So here's the property here. So we always start exactly at the property. Zoom in. You'll see there. Now I've done a couple of lines. Just go out here. One is to the hospital where they went to pick up Grandma. The other is the actual riding stable, swimming hole. This is the area that's conjunct the North Node in the chart at 68 degrees. This one's conjunct Uranus. I'm going to go back over this, but I'll just show you why I've got this. 2.6 miles out with the ascendant takes us to this spot here. And then there's an area straight down that I'm very interested in. And that is 146 degrees, which on the chart turns into 26 degrees of Leo, where the moon was. As you know, the moon is really important. It's at the top of the chart. Everything goes to it. This is the moon line here. So if we zoom in, it indicates to me that well, there's a few areas, but this line down here, I know they've searched, but they need to search again. I believe that if she's not within the house, then this line is very, very possible. Now we're going to see if this line or an area comes up in the other charts given by Hunter, the time frames that we've got. We'll see if we get any repetitive things. Now the reason why I went out 2.6 miles here is because 26 degrees of Scorpio is the ascendant. So this is the other spot. Obviously it can be a bigger area. So that's exactly where the ascendant goes to. So you've always got to look to the ascendant. That's an important area. Not disregarding the other areas that I've said either. So what would we do next? Let's have a look at a couple of other charts. So here we have 3 charts. 11 a.m. when apparently Candace went back to Hunter's house and decided to go swimming. The time when they were actually swimming, and then 3:09 when the photograph was taken of Summer in the car. So we're going to have a look at all these bit by bit and just quickly see if we've got any interesting areas to look at. So when she called and said, you know, I'm at the hospital, that's this chart here basically. So she's ruled by Leo. This is Candace here. And there's the moon right there on the ascendant. So we've got her. Now, the phone call or text is the 3rd house, which is Libra. And it is at 15 degrees. So we want to have a look at any other house cusps that are 15 degrees. The 15, nope. But we have Venus at 15. Okay, so Venus is the ruler of the 3rd house, and it's exactly at 15 degrees, making a square to the 3rd house cusp. So she's making a phone call about Grandma, and there's Grandma. And in the first chart, to me, Venus in the 8th house was Grandma as well, because it's the 4th house from the 4th, Grandma. So there's a very close aspect between Mum here, the moon, wanting to go over to Hunter's house or wanting to be with him for some reason, and this line here, which is a quincunx, to Neptune. Now it's in the 8th house of death. It's A, to do with drugs, and B, to do with water. So it's interesting that from the other chart being flipped around, earlier on in the day, we've got an indicator that Mum has something lined up here, and I would have to hazard a guess that drugs and drug-related type things are more overpowering than the drowning situation. Let's have a look at the next chart. Now this is 12:21, and this is when Summer was actually swimming. So now we need to look at the chart. It's fluid, you know, just like life. We need to look at it as it is. So now we have, Summer originally in the first chart is ruled by Mars and also the moon. But we have the ruling victim area as Mercury. Now, she's not a victim at this point, but we don't know what's happening right now. So we've got Virgo, so Mercury is of importance here. Now, interestingly, at 10 degrees of Virgo, there's an exact square to the North Node, which is the exact line that runs through Warrior State Park. That's 70 degrees. So actually, this MC is 68 degrees when we convert it. Let's have a look at this. Here's the one I done earlier. 68 degrees conjunct the North Node is this spot here. The line's a little bit off. But that's okay, it's still 68. To the exact location that she was swimming at. 68 or 8 degrees of Gemini, the MC. So the water in this instance is in the area of the enemy. But the drugs is also in the area of the enemy as well. It's very confusing, this one, because drugs and the water are tied in very closely, and it's because the story's being told that way. But so the area of the enemy of the situation at that time is 10 degrees of Pisces, and it's making a square to the area where she was swimming. So there's a T-square here between her, what was going to happen, and what happened. And I hate to say it, but this Mercury here in Gemini retrograde, to me, represents the young boy that was there, and that's Hunter. So at 12:21, I think Hunter knows possibly a little bit more, or maybe that's when he dove in and tried to help her. It's possible. So this Mercury being the apex of this T-square, Mercury is representing summer, going swimming, but being in Gemini, it's two people, so it's Summer and her quote-unquote brother, who's not, Hunter. That's this area here. Right. Photo was taken of Summer in the car at 3:09. What do we see? Anything that's repetitive or interesting? Well, the first thing that I see is that at this time, Libra is on the ascendant at 15 degrees, and the ruler, Venus, is on the midheaven at 16, squaring. So there's a detrimental aspect between Summer and the ruler of Summer. Now that, of course, is in a T-square with what happened as well, which just happens to be Aries, which then goes back to Mars, which was the original ruler of Summer in the 911 call chart. So this one's hard to tell. I mean, we need to look at the 8th house cusp is where we want to look if we want to see if that she's oh, the universe does not want me to talk. Uranus is on the 8th house cusp, which indicates an accident possibly happening. It's making this really tight square to Saturn, which is the physical body, in the 4th house of the end of the matter. Pluto, which is really important, and the moon are closer together even still, making a quincunx, but now from the 11th house. So mother with other people, allowing something, something's happened at this point in time. All of this doesn't look too fantastic, to be honest. But by this time, Hunter's been taken home. Now, to me, that this is him here. So trailing behind in this 9th house, it would sort of make sense because everything else is going on over here, apart from the indicator of the 8th house and the 4th house. There is a square between Neptune in the health area of the 6th house, and the Sun, which is an older male, or the vitality of summer. So it could indicate that it's possible that she isn't alive at this point, but it sort of doesn't make sense to me. It's not quite ringing true that that's the case. But then when I think about the scenario of them going home and the boys not really seeing her, and then suddenly she's missing, then it does add up. But the situation leading up to it is very, very strange. This is for 11:30 that night, when apparently she was on Snapchat talking to the friends. If you watch Chris McDonough's interview, you'll see that. So I thought, well, let's have a look at that, because they said very clearly that she was very nonchalant, she wasn't crying, and she said she was going to go to bed. Okay, so the moon has now moved into 0 degrees of Mercury, but still in the 7th house of the perpetrator. But this is a Snapchat one, and it's not the exact time. We've got between 11:30 and midnight, but Snapchat is the 3rd house cusp, and that's Aries, so Mars is the ruler. So that's showing us that the discussion is about summer, because she is Mars in Leo. That's her there. Now, I have a bunch of questions about this, and the moon and the new moon sort of makes sense, because it's almost like by this point in time her hands have been washed of whatever's happened. It's been explained like she was not emotional at all and was going to go to bed. Now, any mother in their right mind would not be going to bed. And not just that, it conflicts again the story that Don Wells told, that he said that they were out. Well, he said at least he was out. I'm going to have to re-listen, searching till 4 a.m. and then had to go to bed, which I still thought was too early too. But so by all accounts, at 11:30, 12 o'clock, Candace was ready to go to bed because she had to go to have a polygraph in the morning. So, I don't know. It's all very odd. It's like it's possible that she thinks that there's just new beginnings from here on in, and is very delusional actually in thinking that, because it's not going to happen that way. Just no way. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the 632 chart because I believe it's the most reliable. We have to take these charts with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because the timing's been given by a boy that can't remember time, which I also find interesting. Oh, please note too, we do have 26 degrees of Scorpio on the midheaven here as well. That's interesting. When you do all these charts, you always see repetitive things, and the repetitive things are the things that you need to map. And that's the ascendant line, the first map line that I showed you that went west, down past the church, across Beach Creek Road. So going back to looking at this 632 chart, it's so very telling. You can see that all these lines point to this moon, and it's not just the mother, it's summer as well. So it's showing us that summer is a part of all of this. Now, we've got the North Node, Mercury, which I count as 2, and the Sun. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the ruler of the 7th house, which is Venus, in the 8th house, gives 5 people that know the circumstances around this situation. 27, 26, 26, 23, 26, 25. It's all very repetitive. So I'm going out 2.6 miles or even 0.26 miles, just very, very close to the home, within the home even. And then about 26 miles. I believe that the Warrior State Park is 24 miles away, so not too far. It's about where the sun is there. And possibly then showing us where an older male could have been waiting there. That's another possibility. So in this, it shows us, it shows a few things. It shows that it could be an exchange of money, an exchange of a child for money purposes. But it does also indicate in this 4th house area, if it's not the result of something to do with drugs or alcohol, then it's a combination of that and what possibly happened at the swimming hole. And I can't discount that she didn't pass away at that swimming hole. And if that is the case, then I once again believe that she's near the home. So we would use that 27 degrees of Leo, definitely, because everything's pointing to it. So we want to use that. We should use 2 degrees of Leo, because Mars rules summer. So that turns into 122 and then 147. So we'll map that and see that that'll form a little wedge. And I'll show you how I do that. So first of all, you have to make sure you get the right place to start with. Then you need to go down to this little cog here and make sure it's set to imperial, so you've got mileage. Now, when we use this tool here, the line tool, if you have a look there, it gives us the length, the latitude, longitude, and the bearing. The bearing is what we're looking at, and it's the degrees that we're turning into. So I'll get rid of that. So 2 degrees of Leo is 122. So we start on the house there until we find 122 in the bearing. You'll see that there. Now we can go out 0.26 miles there. And 122 right there. That's one area we could look. Zoom in a little bit. Then the next planet was the moon here, and that's at 146, which is this line that I've drawn here. So if we go out 0.26, it goes to this circle here. So now we've formed ourselves a wedge to look at. To start with. And obviously there's other places that I've shown as well, but this is exactly where I would be looking again, within this area here, across Ben Hill Road. just around here. That would be my first starting point. Then I would go over to here. And then we would want to start going out about 26 miles. Oops. Which is about here. Miles away. And I don't know if there's enough time or a missing time frame enough to warrant going into Virginia, maybe. But to start with, this wedge here, and we can extend it like that. So you would do that whole area.